Welcome to the Jaron Jarvis channel. I am Jaron Jarvis. Today, I would like to introduce to you an evening stroll through the woods. Silence, but for the persistent crunch of boots on fresh snow. The late December air swirled with snowflakes, and yet the trees held fast, unmoving. Methodically the young woman made her way along the path, boots diving deep into the crusty untouched landscape. She found the quiet energy on the trails invigorating. She felt aware of the world around her. Plus, it wasn't like she was in unknown territory. She had walked these paths several times a day for the last 2 years, since moving to town. With her knit hat, scarf, and mittens along with her jacket, sweatpants, and boots pulled over thick woolly socks, she was at home in the snow. No further than a mile from her warm home, prepared for the cold, she walked on. Ahead of her, she could see no further than 15 feet into the inky darkness of the winter night. Of course, it wasn't her first walk in the woods at night, but this darkness felt different somehow. It was as if she walked into, or at least towards, a black hole. The darkness seemed to suck the light away, leaving her alone with just the sound of her boots for company. Snow fluttered in her vision, but the path itself remained enigmatic and shifting in the blackness. Still, she was confident and bold, professional, and skeptical. The light, or lack thereof, didn't especially bother her. She went on this walk for a chance to embrace the wild winter air and give herself a chance to think in the quiet, and she intended to do just that. She had knit her hat and scarf out of a thick brown wool. After a Black Friday sale at the yarn store, she had found herself with skeins of the stuff, and although it wasn't particularly attractive, it was warm. That year she had made everyone brown gloves, brown hats, brown mittens, brown scarves, and brown socks. There were several pairs of the brown socks sitting on a shelf in her closet, and another hung from the end of her needles, by her recliner, back in her home. The brown wool kept her warm. It was big and fluffy and burly and strong. It kept the woman comfortable in the winter night air by covering her head and neck almost completely. She saw out of a narrow slit in her near-complete Arctic coverage, a slit that blocked the majority of her peripheral vision. She heard through layers of wool and the polyester lining of her coat. She heard only her footsteps. The path she took led her down a great sloping hill, further and further into the maw of darkness. At the bottom she would follow another path back towards her home. Usually she walked these woods with a companion, be it her beloved dog or a friend. Too cold for her dog, tonight her only company was her voice in her head. A voice that was becoming increasingly concerned as the darkness consumed more and more of her already limited field of view. Onward, familiar trees on her flanks, crushing darkness before her, into the abyss. She saw less than 10 feet in front of her now, but still the unceasing crunch of boots kept her focused. Reaching the furthest point of her short woodland walk, the woman began to ascend the hill, picking up her pace ever so slightly, though she was unaware she had done it. The wind whipped fiercely, drawing the snowflakes into a cyclone in front of her eyes. She saw the trees swaying and bucking in the wind but still heard nothing besides her footfalls. Well within half a mile from her house she began to panic as her vision blinked down to mere feet. By now she knew this darkness was unusual, hungry, cruel. She saw, at most, 5 or 6 feet in front of her. The trees, once familiar and serene, now loomed and shook in the silent wind as she fell into an awkward trot in the collecting snow. Still the crunch of snow on boots, but now in a world where she could barely see her own 2 feet and they tramped along frozen ground. Now near total darkness as she fumbled her way through the woods. Darkness closed in on her as she began to panic. Usually calm and rational, she felt claustrophobia set in as her vision faltered and her hearing continued to betray her. She knew she must be close to the house, but by now she saw through tunnel-like pricks of light. Still the crunch of boots on snow. Her steps grew louder and louder, crashing booming blasts of noise as her vision grew ever more useless. She feared she would be lost in these woods she knew so well, just feet from her own warm bed, frozen solid in the winter storm, lost to the world. Just like that, she was left in a world of perfect pitch blackness. Her eyes useless, she tore at her scarf and had to try to get a better view of what could possibly be happening around her. Saw nothing. She heard nothing but footsteps. Footsteps that continued even after she had stopped walking.